The PS5 Pro just had its first big leak. Is Sony's big PS5 showcase canceled? And the 30 FPS wars have begun. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady. In today's video, we're gonna get to everything I just mentioned, but first, I gotta talk about all of this Silent Hill news because this has been a long time coming. There have been gameplay leaks, there have been leaks that say Bloober Team is remaking Silent Hill 2, there have been leaks saying a new game is in development, going all the way back to the director of the original movie, which I personally think is really good, saying in 2020 that not only are multiple games in development, but there's going to be a new movie as well, which is crazy because Silent Hill for me is a universe I first experienced through the movie and I absolutely fell in love, and I only really got to play it through the terrible remasters for the Xbox 360, and now I'm playing through Silent Hill 2 on my Steam Deck again with the enhanced edition, and just the world, the characters, the writing, the soundtrack, everything about this game, I can totally see why it developed this huge fan base that it's had in the background for so long. And it's crazy to see how much Konami has kind of let it fall by the wayside. But all of that changes this Wednesday at 2 p.m. Yes, Wednesday, October 19th, which October 19th is a very important day to me. It's the release date of Halloween 2018. And if you want to see all my coverage of Halloween Ends, I did a spoiler review and a spoiler-free review. Go check out my channel, Jimmy Champagne. That's all you have to type into YouTube. But yeah, October 19th is when this is happening. So now we're going to have a day that's simultaneously the Halloween 2018 release date and also the Silent Hill comeback day. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, like I mentioned, a lot of these rumors have been coming true. This was actually supposed to be revealed allegedly over a year ago at E3. Konami had a big showcase schedule just like all the other publishers usually do, and then they canceled it at the last second, but all the big rumors were basically saying that yeah, they were going to announce the new Silent Hills, but I guess they delayed it so that they could wait and get these games announced closer to when they're releasing. I'm personally really excited for Bloober Team Silent Hill 2 remake. For some reason, they get a huge bad rap on Twitter. I think they're one of the better horror developers out there. I've played the vast majority of their games, whether it's Blair Witch, all the way down to something like The Medium, which honestly, The Medium's probably my least favorite game of theirs, but I did love Layers of Fear and Layers of Fear 2. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they could do with a remake of Silent Hill because they've never had a game with combat in it, and I think that could be really cool to see them stretch their legs. I think it's going to be really cool to see them nail their horror aspect, which they've totally honed in over their past few games, like Observer, it's another one I forgot to mention, and now have combat as well to really show that they're a good horror developer. And also, I'm excited to have a new entry in this series, kind of like a spiritual reboot, kind of like Resident Evil 7. You know, it's been so long since the last mainline Silent Hill game, at least. I think it would be really cool to have a new entry point for people into this world, like we're seeing with Dead Space or the Callisto Protocol, or even to some extent, all of these Resident Evil remakes. And I'm hoping that once Resident Evil 4's remake comes out, they go back and remake Resident Evil 1 again in the style of 2 and 3 and now 4 remakes because it's just so good. But yeah, horror fans, we've got a lot coming. We got the Winter's update for Resident Evil Village on October 28th. I'm super excited for that. To replay that game in third person is going to be a ton of fun. Then we get the Callisto Protocol in December. Then we get Alone in the Dark next year and Dead Space remake. And now we're going to be getting at least one Silent Hill game, but it really seems like we're getting two. So yeah, as far as horror games go, especially if you look on the indie side with shooters like Cultic and Nightmare Reaper, which I've been loving, this is like the horror game renaissance I thought the Halloween 2018 movie was going to bring forth for slashers, but it didn't really totally work out that way. But this time around, we are getting a ton of great horror games coming out, thanks in part mostly, I would say, to Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 2 Remake. Now we got to talk about the whole 30 FPS debacle that's been happening over the weekend. So this started with Gotham Knights, and that's the one I'm really going to rip into the most here because this is a AAA game. It's being sold for full price. It's basically a next-gen only game because even though they announced it for the PS4 and Xbox One, they ended up canceling those versions of the games. And then now we're hearing from the developer's Discord server, I guess is where this was announced, that it's going to be only capped at 30 FPS on the PS5 and Xbox Series X. There's no performance mode that drops the resolution down. And I guess the excuse they're giving is that having a seamless open world, where if you're playing two-player with a friend, because the game is only two-player at launch, that person has a seamless open world and can kind of do their own thing, and then you guys will cross paths as you're playing the game. They're using that as the excuse as to why the game is running at 30 FPS, and I personally just don't really care. I think they should spend more time on the game and get it to a technically polished point where it can run at 60 FPS, because I also have a gaming PC, and I've looked at the requirements for this game, and it does not seem like it's going to be that hard to get it to run at 60 FPS at console settings at around 1080p. I feel like this game on PC is really going to show why it's unacceptable that we're getting a 30 FPS game only 2 years into the PS5's life cycle. That's like absolutely crazy. And it's not the only game either, because A Plague Tale Requiem is coming out this week, and one of the big sticking points in a lot of reviews is that not only is the performance across the board completely lacking, it also only has 30 FPS modes. And I don't want to come down too hard on that game just because it's like a borderline indie game. I would say it's more of like a AA game, and it's more cinematically based than something like Gotham Knights, where it's open world, it's combat based, you need to have quick reaction times, you're flying all over the city. I mean, it's basically a third person shooter if you're playing as Red Hood. So yeah, to have a game like that not have a 60 FPS mode on PS5, that's just like not great. And I definitely ripped into Dying Light 2 earlier this year, where if you played it at 60 FPS, it dropped it all the way down to 1080p, and that's unacceptable as well, but it would be more acceptable to at least have that option here. I really think this is a warning sign for Gotham Knights. The review embargo I've heard is Thursday as well, which is the night the game comes out, which is yet another red flag. But either way, just based on everything we've seen from this game and heard so far, I would say hold off before purchasing it, because we don't even know if it's a strong 30 FPS or if it's going to be dipping over and under that mark like we saw with I don't know, Jedi Fallen Order when that game came out. I've read from a Twitter account, Benji Sales, that the reason there wasn't really a big push last generation to get games running at 60 FPS is because no one was really asking for it. But we've had enough games now with the PlayStation 5, which was advertised as a 120 FPS console, that rightfully so, people are realizing how much better 60 FPS is and how hard it is to go back to 30 FPS once you've experienced it. The only games I really enjoy playing at 30 FPS are games on my Steam Deck, and it's mostly the Sony games, like Spider-Man Remastered, for example. That game's animations were built to run at 30 FPS on the PlayStation 4, so that game looks really good running at 30 FPS. But if you played it at 60 on a good gaming PC or on the PlayStation 5, it is jarring to go back and forth between those two frame rates. And the same thing goes for God of War, Horizon, and Days Gone. All of those games are so much better running at 60 frames per second, but at their core, they have animations that were built for 30 FPS, so if you play them at that frame rate, they look fine. A lot of other games don't seem to have that benefit. Their animations don't feel like they were designed to run at 30 FPS. They feel like they were just designed as they were. So something like Gotham Knights, this is just not good. I feel like a AAA game like this, especially in a universe that's tied to the Arkham games in some way. I know it's a completely new thing, but these people have made it, have worked on the Arkham series before, and you can definitely see that series DNA in this game. I think it should really live up to the standard of those games, or at least try its best to, and releasing with 30 FPS on a brand new console when you're a next gen only game that had an old gen game released as well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much of a defense here for the people over at WB Montreal. And this is like definitely a nitpicky complaint, but doing a Court of Owls story without Batman just seems like a completely bizarre move. I've heard good things from people who played the game and really were getting into the story, but yeah, I'll just have to see how that shakes out. In my mind, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So if you guys haven't noticed, Sony has released one of their weirdest colorways yet for the DualSense, the PS5, and the Pulse Wireless 3D headset. It's a gray camo look, and on the surface, I don't love it. I think it's kind of cool. I would prefer it to be a matte black camo or like a black and red type of camo, but I don't really have anything against camo as a whole. I think it looks better on the Pulse Wireless 3D headset and the DualSense than it does on the plates of your PS5, but something that actually makes me want to pick up one of these controllers is a hidden detail that people have been able to find from high-res screenshots on the PlayStation Twitter. So in the patches of camo that this controller has, like the lightest gray ones, if you look closely, you can see thousands of the little PlayStation button logos in there. So the square, triangle, cross, circle. It's all hidden within the controller. And if you look on the side of the side plates, and of course the Pulse Wireless 3D headset, they're hidden there as well. I don't know what it is about this very subtle change or difference from just regular camo, but it's really cool to me and honestly makes me want to pick up one of these DualSenses. I do have the God of War Ragnarok edition on pre-order, so I think I'm going to hold off because this just seems like a colorway that might get a little bit of a price reduction as time goes on, because I haven't seen a ton of people really clamoring to get their hands on it, but still, I think it's pretty cool. And if my black controller ever starts crapping out, I think the next one I pick up will be this camo set, because I don't know, it looks pretty cool to me. I don't think I will change the side plates on my PS5 though. Those just look too damn good in matte black, but if I ever do upgrade them, it will be because I want to get official ones, because right now, I mean, I'm using the discontinued, probably collector's item at this point, D-brand plates that don't have the PS logo cut out. So they look a little jank if you know what you're looking for. And now we got to talk about this PlayStation showcase we've all been waiting for that seems to never materialize. And the reason for that, it turns out, is because of Microsoft. So the big rumor that's been being spread and corroborated is that this event was supposed to be announced on October 9th with a 10-day window in between. So the event would happen on October 19th. They had first parties in place. They had second parties in place. Everything was ready to go, whether it was Final Fantasy 16 or this new Silent Hill stuff or whatever it was Sony is going to announce. But the reason that they're not doing it is, again, because of Microsoft. So Microsoft is getting investigated right now over their purchase of Activision, and Sony has been majorly fighting back. I'm not going to go super deep into detail on it, but Microsoft's big argument is that PlayStation has been flexing for years now, and they have huge market share over the industry, and one of the biggest things they do is buy second and third party exclusives to keep them off of Microsoft's consoles. And with games rumored to be announced at this showcase that are second and third party exclusives that are being kept off of Microsoft's console, Sony doesn't want to do this announcement while the investigation is happening because they think it would hurt their chances at stopping Microsoft from buying Activision, which I don't really know how invested they are in stopping it, or if they're just trying to make it annoying or as annoying as possible for Microsoft. But either way, this is honestly a very believable reason to delay the showcase to me. And it doesn't really tell me that it's canceled outright, but they're probably just waiting for this investigation to end. Because regardless of whether or not Microsoft gets Activision or not, once this investigation is over, that's when Sony could really start opening the floodgates and show us what games we have to look forward to in the next year on the PlayStation 5. So yeah, it really sucks that we haven't seen this showcase yet, and it makes me hate this Activision deal that I'm sick of talking about even more. But this is the first leak or rumor or whatever that I've seen, A, corroborated by some pretty big people, and B, one that actually makes a lot of sense for why we haven't seen that showcase. Because I will just sit here thinking about it for as long as it takes, but I cannot think of a good reason why we wouldn't have a showcase when we had one in the last 2 years at the exact same time. It feels extremely weird, other than this explanation, that we have not had one just yet. So we've had rumors for months now that the PS5 Pro is real and that it's coming sooner than we think. My stance on it from the beginning has been that maybe they should do a PS5 Slim first and wait a little longer on the PS5 Pro, just mainly because none of the games that have come out at this point have really pushed the PS5 to its limit yet. So what are they really going to market the PS5 Pro on? But it seems like Sony is going against my take, and they're going to be releasing these two consoles at the same time. The infamous GTA leaker Tez2 has revealed that not only is the PS5 Pro and the PS5 Slim dev kits already coming to some developers now, but it will be in their hands by the beginning of next year. But on top of that, there's also a new Series X coming out as well, and dev kits for that are shipping out around the same time. I just don't exactly know how much more headroom they really need on this console because it hasn't really been pushed to its limits. Like, I guarantee you, if and when this PS5 Pro does come out at the end of next year, if the timing lines up how it's rumored to be, you'll see a 60 FPS mode for something like Gotham Knights, but I don't really think that's going to make a big difference in the game because it doesn't look like the game's really pushing the console that much, right? Like, if it was a game that looked as good as something like The Last of Us Part 2 and they said, yeah, this game needs to run at 30 FPS, I would kind of completely understand where they were coming from, because I'm like, oh, they're making a full-on open world game with seamless multiplayer that looks almost like real life in the same way The Last of Us does. But this game looks like a minor upgrade at best over Arkham Knight, which came out in 2015. So getting updates for games that came out on the original PS5 for a PS5 Pro to make them run at 60 FPS, that's not really a good selling point for me. It's kind of the exact same situation we're in now, where we're getting a bunch of PS4 games ported over to the PS5, and the biggest selling point they have is that it has upgraded resolution and frame rate, which I don't want to discount 60 FPS because it is genuinely better. It's just not really the biggest selling point for me personally, because I don't feel like any of these games are pushing the console to its actual limit. So basically what I'm saying is, if you saw all these news reports of PS5s being 4 times more likely to find in 2023, I don't feel like it's worth waiting at this point for this theoretical PS5 Pro, because if the developers are getting dev kits at the beginning of next year, sure, the thing could be out by the end of 2023, but I would guess that the earliest we'll see it is the end of 2024 or even the mid-year of 2025. I'm still holding strong here that they want to give the developers developers a heads up with some hardware and say, this is what we're going to have in the future. So start making sure your games are able to run better on this thing than they are able to on the PS5 currently. And overall, I think this is good because it's pushing us farther and farther away from the PlayStation 4. The sooner we can cut off this dying limb that is the PlayStation 4, I think the sooner we'll all start appreciating our PS5 more, even if there is a PS5 Pro there as well. But yeah, this is crazy to see that a big reputable leaker that's like leaked a ton of stuff from GTA and been right about it is just openly talking about the PS5 Pro. It feels like we just got the PS5, but now we're talking about the next great thing. So the world keeps on moving and it's kind of crazy.